Good morning. Hi, I'm Adrian and I'm the CEO of DeltaPay. So I was working on my master thesis actually, and it was about privacy preserving currencies, specifically central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. And initially we sort of got some data from the Central Bank of Eswatini on that issue, and that could have led to a few presentations and then eventually the idea to be part of that project, to be part of their CBDC project. And then sort of we had more in-depth discussions on where the project was at, and at the time it was still very much in the sort of planning and stakeholder finding stakeholder phase basically. And more or less the result of that discussion was that why don't we do something like this as a private enterprise, as a business. And so long story short, effectively that's where the idea of DeltaPay came from. And meanwhile, being around the country, you see that there's a lot of digital money, there's a lot of mobile money, but there aren't a lot of mobile payments. You actually find that most of what mobile money is being used for is purchases, it's local remittances, that being one person going, depositing, sending it to a relative or a friend, and then that person again withdrawing the cash and then spending cash at stores. Well, that's something that I think differentiates us quite significantly from the existing players in the market. It's in the name, it's DeltaPay, so we're all about payments, whether that be online, in person, in stores. Again, we have the QR code payments as well, so that's something that we believe can really make payments as a whole more convenient and also more affordable, because you don't need a POS device, you don't need all of this infrastructure that comes with traditional banking. All you really need is an app and a phone and a piece of paper. So yeah. So a month ago we announced our partnership with Instacash, and we're very excited about that for a number of reasons. First of all, as I've just mentioned earlier, we're about payments. So there's already about 15,000 agents in the country, and DeltaPay doesn't really intend to add many more to that. Of course there's going to be a few, because you need to have that cash in, cash out option. But what we really want to do with Instacash, and I think what the partnership alludes to, is to focus on what we're doing best. So Instacash is strong, very strong in the rural communities. It's been growing ever since they entered the market about 5 years ago, and we're very happy about that partnership, because now what you can do is if you live in a rural community, you can send funds to someone with a DeltaPay account who lives, say, in Mbabane, who can then go to your supermarket, spend it there, and have that digital experience. And vice versa, let's say you've got some money in a DeltaPay account, you want to send it to your cousin who lives in Klangana or wherever, you can now send more or less in 5 seconds to that person straight to their Instacash account. And in fact, it's actually cheaper than if you had to withdraw that money and spend cash. So what you find is that even if you've got money coming in through Instacash, putting it in your DeltaPay, spending it, remember, payments are free, you get cash back even when you pay at stores. So I think it's really a step towards integration of the financial systems that we have in the country, and I'm very excited to see this being used more in the future and actually making people aware that, hey, this is an option now. So as mobile money, we are regulated by the Central Bank of Eswatini. So as you can imagine, that's a long and sometimes a bit tedious process. But what I do have to say is that the collaboration, or if you can call it that, the regulation, has been very professional and very fair. So I think with all the inquiries that were made and with all the sort of complaints about some of the initial stuff that we were fighting through, it's always been a fair assessment of our points. To give an example, maybe, we do have to look into PEPs, into politically exposed persons, as any other financial institution in the country. And the reason for that being is that obviously Eswatini, well, the financial industry in Eswatini as a whole is also globally exposed. So we need to make sure that we adhere to global regulation, because otherwise the consequences could be that worst case the country gets grey listed or even blacklisted, which now basically you're North Korea, so you can't trade. So it's a very recognize that, but one of the points that was requested from us was to do PEPs by association, which basically means that if a person is PEP, then all of the people that are in their immediate family, friends, business partners now also classify as PEP. The issue with that is that if you do that in Eswatini, in the country here, well, you find that almost the whole country is becoming PEP. So we raised that point, and we suggested a solution, which is self-declaration, and that was taken up, and I think it's something that is now being discussed industry-wide. So I think that's just one example. There's many more where there's a healthy discussion happening between the regulator and us, and not just us, but everyone in the industry. And I think that's ultimately going to help us move in a direction that is safe and also protects ultimately the customers and consumers, because there's not just AML, but there's also consumer protection, data protection that is being strengthened quite significantly, but also allows us to innovate and allows us to bring the products that people want to see on the ground. Because I can understand also that sometimes it is frustrating when you're saying, why don't we have this? And you can kind of come back and, with cross-border, for example, you say, well, but there's this regulation. So we're working on that, and I think so far the experience has been positive. So as a financial entity, obviously security is key. It's a building block that is so fundamental that without it, we might not even do what we want to do. It's the core of our design, and we really believe in security by design. So what that means is that from the start, from the very first sort of pen stroke of designing the system, we focused on making it so that we don't only protect data to the outside world, but we also protect us from ourselves, which perhaps is the biggest threat. Because ultimately what any attack aims to do is an attacker tries to get access not to the entire system, but necessarily to the credentials of one of our employees. So we have three sort of layers of defense that come in. The first one is your most standard password, username, password, PIN. Again, I urge you not to share your passwords with anyone, including staff. Then the second layer is perhaps the most unique, that we're hosting our own blockchain. So we're making use of blockchain technology to sign the transactions that are sent from your phone. And the way that works is that you have a private key on your device. If you use the app, you'll see this 12-letter or 12-word phrase rather that we call the secure phrase. The technical term for that is a mnemonic, and anyone who has a crypto wallet will be very familiar with those. And that's a phrase that stays on your phone, that never leaves your phone, so it's not stored on our servers. And that's used to sign the transactions that you send. So whenever you're sending money to someone, or even just do something like set someone's spending limits, those transactions will be signed by that mnemonic, by that secure phrase. And again, it's very important to safeguard that secure phrase just like you would a password. And then the third layer of defense is our infrastructure. So we're hosting on AWS, Amazon Web Services, which is what most modern applications nowadays are hosted on in the cloud, and we're making extensive use of the security features that are available there. So VPCs, virtual private clouds, meaning that all of the services, all of your data isn't publicly accessible. There's firewalls surrounding them. There's security groups that are configured in such a way that, again, not even staff can necessarily have access to all of this data, but only on a need-to-know basis. So if you need to know something, yes, you'll get access to it, for example, for transaction monitoring of fraud, things like that, but anything beyond that is private and secured. So one of the things that we're actually most excited about is bringing financial digital services to the whole country, not just the Mbabane-Manzini corridor. And we believe that DeltaPay actually has the potential to finally realize that, partly because of the non-existent setup cost. If you have a phone, you have DeltaPay. There's no maintenance fees, there's no account setup fees, there's no, all of these small things that come with a bank account that just simply don't exist with DeltaPay. So another thing is you can sign up from anywhere. You can literally be lying in your bed and deciding at 10 p.m., hey, why don't I onboard? If you have your ID card, you can do it. So that's one of the things that we're really trying to push, also for businesses. It's not quite live yet, but you'll find that a couple months down the time, you can go on our website, you can fill out an outreach form, you can upload your business documentation. That would literally be you taking a picture with your phone of whatever documentation you have for your business. You do not need to come into an office to do that. Further, again, I'm coming back to Instacash. I think that's one of our strongholds in the rural communities, and I'm very excited to see where that can lead us. And maybe also in the future, coming back to the regulatory aspect, we're looking into ways to make it a bit more accessible for the informal sector also. So we find that currently there's two sets. There's either you have a personal account, and that comes with all kind of limitations, or you have a business account, but in order for you to have that business account, you need to have all of these papers. You need to have your Form J, Form C, incorporation, memorandum, and so on and so forth. If you're a sole trader, it's slightly less, but still. And so we're looking into ways maybe to allow people to have mini business accounts or micro accounts that can work as a first step towards growing a business, towards starting your journey as an entrepreneur, which simply reflects the reality on the ground. That is that no one sort of wakes up the next day and has a massive enterprise. I mean, we don't. So it's something that takes time, and it's a journey that if we can make it smoother and more accessible, then that will ultimately be a win, not just for us, but also, I think, for the whole country.